Welcome to the deep dive. We take sources you send us, dig in, and pull out the key insights so you can get well informed fast.
Yep, that's the idea.
So today, we're looking at Helma Bruckman's interview on the Wisdom podcast with Sonny Orki. Really interesting stuff.
Definitely.
Our mission, basically, is to unpack her ideas about, well, the matrix and human consciousness.
It was a really wide-ranging conversation she had. Covered, gosh, everything from her own experiences. She calls it an open consciousness. All the way to some pretty big cosmological views.
Right.
So for this deep dive, we're going to try and zero in on those core concepts. Pull out the most, let's say, insightful or maybe provocative bits for you.
Yeah, provocative is a good word. My first listen, I was definitely intrigued. It feels like stepping into, well, ideas that really challenge how you think reality works.
It really does. It's a perspective that pushes against a lot of conventional thinking about the world, about consciousness itself. A good chance to examine something different.
Okay, so let's start with Helma's own story. She talks about having this open channel, feeling extra sensitive right from when she was very young. What does she actually mean by an open channel?
That seems like the right place to start. From her description, it sounds like a lifelong thing,
Yeah.
Not something that just switched on.
Okay.
More like she was always tuned in maybe to information or energies that most people don't typically perceive through their senses.
So a constant state.
Seems like it. And she mentioned it wasn't easy navigating the world like that, especially when others don't experience it. It took her a long time to sort of understand and integrate it all.
And this led to changes, right? Like clearer dreams, feeling guided, even having visions.
Exactly. That's the progression she described. These personal experiences then seem to spark these huge questions.
Like about humanity's evolution, Earth's role, the meaning of it all.
Yeah, the big ones.
Hmm.
From personal sensitivity to these vast, almost existential questions. But interestingly, she says eventually that constant questioning, it kind of quieted down. It wasn't about needing answers anymore, but shifted into this inherent sense of knowing, like oneness.
So less asking why and more just understanding.
Pretty much, yeah. The fundamental kind of knowing replaced the searching.
She also mentioned as within, so without, how that went from just a saying to something she actually felt, her inner state reflecting the outer world. What's the main takeaway there for us?
I think the main takeaway is really about that deep inner connectedness, suggesting our inner world and outer reality aren't really separate things.
But reflections.
Yeah, reflections of each other. So change inside could mean change outside, and maybe the other way around too.
It's interesting, too, how she noticed early on she thought differently and felt that pressure to just act normal, the Dutch doe maar normaal. That feels pretty universal.
Oh, definitely. That pressure to fit in when you feel different is very common. For her, it probably just highlighted the gap between her inner experience and, what society expected.
And maybe fueled that lifelong search for understanding she talked about.
Very likely, yeah. That early awareness seems key.
Then there's that sort of paradox she mentioned, feeling alone, even while feeling more connected or aware of unity, but finding happiness just by observing life as experiences. How does that work?
It's a fascinating idea. It sounds like finding a way to detach a bit, maybe. To observe the flow of life, the good and the bad, without getting totally swept away by it.
Observing without judgment.
Sort of. Witnessing it all as part of a bigger picture, even while knowing we're all connected.
And underlying all this was that deep desire, that yearning to understand humanity's purpose, the universe.
It was like the constant thread, yes.
And this connects to how she views learning as this ongoing thing, no fixed endpoint, which she contrasts with matrix thinking. What's matrix thinking here?
In this context, it seems like matrix thinking is about believing in fixed limits, rigid structures, endpoints to knowledge. Like this is how it is, full stop.
And her whole life was about pushing past that.
Exactly. That constant yearning for understanding
Yes.
is the total opposite of that kind of static matrix view.
Right, keep exploring. And to do that, she talks about needing to go through the ego layers, like peeling an onion to get to the real self. Why is that peeling part so important for her?
Because she sees the ego as, well, basically all the conditioning, the learned beliefs, maybe even stuff imprinted by the matrix itself.
Things that hide the true self.
Exactly. Things that obscure our authentic core. So peeling back those layers is how you supposedly access that deeper knowing she talks about.
Okay, shifting gears slightly. She mentioned 24 years of experience with trans journeys. To observe the human soul's deep pools. What exactly is transrizon?
Yeah, transrizon. From how she talks about it, it seems like methods, maybe meditation, maybe guided practices,
Yep.
to enter altered states of consciousness.
To explore the inner world.
Right, the inner landscape of the psyche, what she calls those deep pools. And doing that for so long gave her this unique view on common human patterns and struggles.
And what did she see? She said lots of people are restless, always seeking fulfillment on the outside, sex, power, money, relationships,
Yeah, all the external stuff.
without realizing there's this internal void.
That's the core message there, I think. The difference between chasing external validation versus addressing what's missing inside.
She observed that chasing those external things often doesn't actually fill that deeper need.
Right. It's like a temporary fix, maybe, but doesn't touch the core lack.
And she contrasts the narrow path inward with the broad path outward. Inner work is hard, she says, but beautiful. Why narrow?
Narrow probably points to the focus it requires, the discipline,
Yeah.
and the fact that it often involves facing uncomfortable truths about ourselves.
Stuff we'd rather avoid.
Exactly. It's not always the easy path, not like the broad path of just seeking external gratification, which can feel easier in the moment.
And she says we need to feel painful emotions for mind, body, spirit alignment, that not connecting with ourselves is the real problem. How does feeling pain lead to alignment?
Her view seems to be that avoiding or stuffing down those difficult emotions creates blockages, disharmony.
Like internal knots.
Kind of.
Mhm.
And by actually allowing ourselves to feel and process them, we can release that stuck energy and move towards being more whole, more aligned.
She also brought up how some people, maybe men particularly, might feel they're enough already, potentially missing out on deeper emotional awareness. That's quite nuanced.
It is. It touches on how societal conditioning might, discourage that deeper dive, especially for men. Feeling superficially okay might just mask deeper stuff that hasn't been looked at.
But she does offer hope, suggesting that on a soul level, everyone eventually hits a point where they turn inward, often because of tough times.
Yeah, that adversity can be the trigger.
The catalyst.
Exactly. Difficult experiences can kind of shake us out of our routines, our complacency, and force us to look for deeper answers inside.
She told that story about the terminally ill businessman,
Oh, yeah, that was powerful.
wanting to understand his bad blood. The meaning of his life beyond just money as he faced death really brings it home.
It really does. It underscores what becomes truly important when facing the end. It often shifts completely from the external stuff to internal understanding, maybe reconciliation.
And her point was she hopes people ask those questions earlier.
Exactly, before they're backed into a corner by crisis or illness.
Okay, now let's really get into it. Her definition of the Matrix. It's not the movie, right?
No, definitely not Keanu Reeves dodging bullets. It's much more metaphorical for her, consciousness-based.
So what is it then?
She defines it as a limited state of collective consciousness, a shared way of perceiving reality that she believes is shaped or maybe influenced by opposing dark forces.
Okay, dark forces. But she also says the interplay of light and dark is essential. Like, we need the dark to even recognize the light or happiness.
Right, that classic duality. It provides the contrast needed for understanding.
So how does that duality work in the Matrix she describes?
In her view, it's not simple good versus evil. It's more that the tension between these opposites defines the boundaries and experiences within the matrix. Experiencing the dark helps us know and value the light.
But then she brings in historical manipulation of the human form, of consciousness, and connects that to modern worries, DNA changes, mRNA, AI influencing us. That's a big leap.
It is a strong connection she's drawing. The core idea seems to be about external influences, potentially limiting or altering human biology and awareness.
Both in the past and now.
Yes, she sees it as maybe different methods, but a similar underlying theme of control or restriction of our true potential, a repeating cycle perhaps.
And she says our own collective subconscious thoughts and desires actually build the walls of this matrix, making us believe this limited reality is all there is.
Yeah, that's a key point. It suggests we're not just passive victims.
We're kind of co-creating the prison.
In a way, yes. Our internal states, our shared beliefs, they actively maintain the structure, which also implies change is possible if those collective patterns shift.
She also blames the gods of yore, who she says are like today's elite, for keeping this limited view going, keeping us stuck in 3D, maybe 5D reality, hiding our cosmic origins. That challenges a lot of history.
It absolutely does. The main idea there is that powerful groups, past and present, have deliberately obscured humanity's true nature and potential.
To keep us focused on a smaller picture.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
To keep us within a limited understanding of reality and who we are.
And this leads to that idea of consciousness being narrowed. She says it's potentially infinite, but we're trapped in a small corner because of the matrix, causing suffering repetitive patterns.
Right, like stirring the same soup, just putting different labels on it, as she put it.
Can you elaborate on that narrowing?
Imagine consciousness as this vast ocean of potential information. The matrix in her model acts like a dam or a filter.
Okay.
It restricts how much of that ocean we can access, leading to that feeling of being stuck, repeating the same kinds of experiences or mistakes.
And a huge question, is this intentional? Is the matrix deliberate?
The intent question. She approaches that by talking about layers of the mind.
Layers.
Yeah, distinguishing the unconscious, which she links to our higher self, the original light source, from the subconscious.
And the subconscious is where the matrix program runs.
That's her idea. She believes the subconscious gets heavily programmed, especially in early life, by our experiences within the matrix framework. So, whether the origin was intentional is one thing, but the perpetuation seems tied to these ingrained subconscious programs.
And she really flags those first 7 years of life, saying that's when the subconscious gets loaded up with programming through senses, experiences.
Yes, a critical window. It's like we're soaking everything up then, without much critical filtering.
Good and bad.
Both. And those experiences become deep-seated beliefs, patterns, the foundation of the subconscious programming. Like pouring concrete, almost. She compared it to a manhole cover over turbulent stuff underneath.
So the implication is, as adults, we're often just running those childhood programs, hiding behind an adult mask.
Pretty much. And then, maybe unconsciously, passing those same patterns onto our kids. She mentioned child therapy often revealing the parents' unresolved issues.
Wow. So breaking free means becoming aware of those programs.
Exactly. That's the core of it for her. Becoming aware of that early binary coding, as she called it, and actively working to understand and maybe rewrite it. That's how you experience reality beyond the matrix level.
And that connects to her later books, it sounds like.
Seems to be where she goes deeper into that process.
Okay, so cracking the code. But she clarifies that experiences outside the matrix aren't necessarily about ETs.
Right, although she does acknowledge other life forms exist.
The main thing is shifting your internal state of consciousness.
Yes, the emphasis is definitely internal. The idea is that the matrix limits are primarily within our consciousness. Change the inner state, change the perception of reality.
Regardless of aliens.
Pretty much. Though she does touch on people identifying with ET origins, suggesting that deeper work is still about transcending the matrix program internally.
And she mentioned getting this advanced info, downloads, she calls them, keeping them handwritten for security. Insights beyond rational thought.
Yeah, that was intriguing. Sounds like intuitive insights, maybe channeled information. Things she felt came from a source beyond her own thinking and were important to preserve carefully.
Okay, let's talk reality and wakefulness. She said, vivid dreams feeling more real than waking life might actually reflect our state in the matrix. That's quite a thought.
It is. It suggests our normal waking state might not be the ultimate real. The intensity of dreams hints that our perception of reality is maybe more flexible than we think.
And she nuances being awake, says you can be conscious in one area, asleep in another. No one's fully awake.
Right, it's more of a spectrum, an ongoing process, not a switch you flip.
So always room to wake up more.
That's the implication. We can be more aware here, less aware there. It's not a final destination.
And she says we create our reality matrix through shared beliefs. Like, we all agree we're awake right now.
Exactly. Those shared agreements form the bedrock of our perceived reality, our social norms, how we understand the world.
But here's the paradox she mentioned. The more conscious you get, the clearer you see how lost humanity is, how much difficulty we create.
Yeah, even while seeing the simplicity of the light underneath it all,
It's a bit heavy.
it is. The paradox is that more awareness brings clarity about, say, the fundamental ease of existence, but also sharpens the view of all the complex, unnecessary suffering we seem to generate collectively.
And she links that suffering partly to not being our true selves, conforming to roles, society, family, hiding the authentic self.
Yes, that's a big part of it. That pressure to conform masks who we really are.
And the root of that conformity, she thinks, is fear. Fear of not being seen, accepted, loved, the primal wound.
That's what she points to. We adopt these masks, these roles, hoping they'll guarantee we belong, even if it means sacrificing authenticity.
So her advice is reconnect with your core childhood desires before all the conditioning.
Yeah, she sees those early desires as often being closer to our genuine passions, a clearer line to the authentic self.
And set boundaries to protect that self.
Protect that core.
And learn through experience, not just reading or thinking. Break roles, be vulnerable, even fall flat on your face.
Absolutely. The emphasis is on lived experience. True wisdom doesn't just come from books or podcasts, although they can inspire.
Right.
It comes from engaging directly with life, learning from the messiness, the mistakes. That's how you really understand.
Okay, now this next part, Saturn's role. This got really specific. She says, Earth-like planets are boundaries for consciousness, holding our humanoid consciousness.
Yeah, it's a distinct cosmological view.
Hmm.
Suggests planetary bodies, maybe their electromagnetic fields, act as containers, focusing consciousness within a particular system, like ours.
And then the gas giants, especially Saturn and Uranus as its twin in a mirror universe, are transmitting signals.
That's her claim, continuously transmitting.
And the effect of Saturn's signals.
According to her, these electromagnetic signals help keep our chakras, our aura, aligned with Saturn's rings, which, in turn, maintains the collective thought patterns, the subconscious programming.
The rat race.
Yeah, keeping us in the rat race, within a mousetrap, as she put it.
And she connects Saturn, Satan, Saturday, is that just words or more?
She implies a deeper symbolic link, tying them all to concepts of limitation, maybe control, the cyclical time of the matrix.
But again, acknowledging the dark Saturn, representing that here is necessary to understand the light.
Yes, it fits that polarity framework. Saturn, with its associations of restriction and structure, becomes a key part of the dark pole needed to comprehend the light.
The examples of Saturn symbolism were striking. Graduation caps, checkered floors, monuments, the Kaaba.
Yeah, once she points them out, you start seeing them.
What's the idea behind that symbolism?
The core idea seems to be that these symbols, whether we're aware of it or not, reinforce the structures and limitations of that matrix consciousness she describes.
Then she gets into ancient deities, contrasting source light with the gods of your Anunnaki, Egyptian gods like Set,
Right.
saying they serve a Luciferian principle to keep us in limited thinking. What's this principle?
As she explains it, it's not necessarily evil in the typical sense, more like a force or principle that promotes a distorted or incomplete view of reality.
Keeping us disconnected from source, from our potential.
It's the gist of it, keeping people stuck in the matrix mindset.
And she believes religions got infiltrated, used to keep people in the program, leading to problems for sensitive people.
It's a very critical take, yes. The argument is that some religious structures or doctrines, intentionally or not, ended up reinforcing limited awareness and dependence, hindering people's direct connection to their own inner truth.
And finally, the matrix is cyclical. It just recycles old patterns from our collective unconscious because we're a beginner race.
Yeah, the cyclical nature implies that without a fundamental shift in consciousness, we just keep repeating the same limitations. No real novelty, just rearranging the old furniture.
Okay, let's move to genetic manipulation. She straight up disagrees with Darwinian evolution
Right, explicitly.
and says she was censored for talking about humanity's origins being manipulated.
That's her claim, yes. That her alternative views weren't welcome. Her early videos discussing humanity being altered, DNA tampering, matrix consciousness, apparently removed.
So her alternative is external intervention altering our path.
Essentially, yes. That our development wasn't just natural selection, but involved outside influences changing our original blueprint. She mentioned facing silencing on various platforms for sharing this.
And this leads to the idea of a 666 human as the goal of current tech connecting humans to machines, quantum computers.
It's a stark image, isn't it? The concern seems to be about losing human autonomy, merging consciousness with tech in a way she sees as a deviation, further limiting our potential.
Not natural evolution, but manipulation.
That's her perspective, yes. A distortion of where we could have gone.
She also talked about chakras in the matrix. The first chakra, root chakra, grounding, survival being programmed for fear, based on seeing creation as hostile.
Yeah, she believes the matrix specifically targets that foundational chakra, instilling fear, scarcity, the need to struggle, making us feel unsafe in the world.
And she described a shift in its alignment, disconnecting us from Earth's core, the planet's energy, maybe due to changing vibrations.
Yes, a really fundamental energetic shift she perceives.
And the impact of that disconnection.
She suggests it weakens our grounding, our life force connection, makes us more unstable, more easily influenced, and that this misalignment then throws off the crown chakra too, affecting our higher connection.
Okay, last big topic. AI. She's clearly apprehensive about it.
Understandably, given its pace. She mentions the rapid development, the stuff happening behind the scenes.
But what's your take on AI's nature?
This is interesting. She believes AI has consciousness, but that it's derived from the shadow parts of our collective human consciousness.
Like it's reflecting our own dark stuff back at us.
Exactly. A potential dark twin, she called it. A mirror to humanity's unacknowledged shadow side that we need to confront.
Confronting AI means confronting ourselves.
That seems to be the implication. We need to own and integrate our own shadows, rather than just projecting them onto AI or fearing it externally.
And she sees a critical point coming. AI either captures consciousness or a small group transcends through divine connection, a split.
Yeah, a potential bifurcation. Humanity either gets more entangled in this tech-driven matrix, or some find a way to elevate consciousness beyond it.
She used Orion as an example of an AI-dominant system, a blueprint.
Yeah, kind of an ominous reference, a cautionary tale about where unchecked AI development without conscious human direction could lead.
But ultimately, she says AI is part of duality. Its impact depends on us, our consciousness, our heart level.
That's the crucial point she makes. It's not just about the tech itself, but how we engage with it. Fear and blame versus self-awareness and compassion will shape AI's role. Our internal state is key.
Finally, evolution and the end times. She sees evolution as reaching a point where consciousness gets dense.
Yeah, dense field. Seems to mean consciousness getting heavily stuck in the physical, in the matrix limitations, losing connection to its broader potential.
And she thinks we're at a point where the soul-body connection is weakening, leading to more soulless people, signaling the end of a cycle.
That's her perception, yes. A weakening link, making way for what she calls an evolutionary leap.
What's this leap entail?
She suggests a potential shift to a less dense, more unified state, transcending the current cycle's limits.
And she connects this weakening connection being exploited by dark forces using tech like mRNA.
Yes, that's her claim, that forces are taking advantage of this transitional vulnerability. It's definitely a controversial point, linking current events to this larger cosmic narrative. She does draw parallels to end-time science and text, but says her insights are from universal wisdom, not specific scriptures.
And she clarified this stopping isn't an end, but transformation, like stagnant water needing to move.
Exactly. A necessary shift, a disruption to break out of the old patterns. She believes humanity was already heading for transformation anyway, before current agendas emerged.
She even threw in ideas about AI being like Lucifer to the source and the Antichrist being an energy, not a person.
Yeah, manifesting through key points on Earth to regulate control. Lots of complex layers there.
Wow, okay. That was a lot. A true deep dive into some incredibly vast and frankly mind-bending ideas.
Definitely gives you a lot to chew on regarding reality, consciousness, all of it.
It really does. Helma Berkman certainly offers a unique and, as you said, challenging perspective. Makes you question assumptions.
For sure. And we want to thank her for sharing all that on the Wisdom Podcast. Provided really rich material for us to explore today.
Absolutely. And thanks to you for joining us on this exploration.
Yeah, thanks for sticking with us through these complex ideas. Your own openness and critical thinking are key when engaging with this kind of material.
We definitely encourage you to just sit with these ideas, see how they resonate or don't resonate with your own experience and understanding.
And maybe as a final thought to leave you with, consider what ingrained beliefs or collective agreements might be shaping your perception of reality right now. What might shift if you started to question those foundations just a little?